We interrupt your normal programming to bring you these breaking news. We have just found an urgent telegram from the Sun, and it reads, "To those with heavy souls, stop, pack, light, and now back to your normal subliminal programming. They work in shifts. Please keep safe following distance on the information highway for they work in shifts." That's it.
Right, so this is the Ink and Thing podcast. My favorite poet is in the building, and I'm not saying this to buy your face. Like literally, you're one of my favorite poet. Yeah. Not more South Africa, like
in general.
In general.
Yeah.
So it's an honor. For you to be here.
Absolute pleasure, man.
Yeah. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I had a very quiet, chilled morning. So yeah. Also, I enjoyed the drive here. So that was cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I was a little bit anxious. I think as I was making a joke outside, telling you, Jorge, if I were to die today, I'd be content. You know, there's always this thing. There is probably 3 or 4 people that I had told myself when I started doing this thing, Jorge, I'd love to interview these people. And after I interview them, I'd probably be done with this thing, you know. So you're one of them. So
it's an honor, man.
One thing that always happens, Jorge, because of I'm always at the verge of quitting. So every time I have to interview one of those people, something is going to happen so that I can continue doing whatever that I'm doing.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
So I'm hoping the cameras are working. I'm not quitting. Sign to the universe.
It's not another sign.
Yeah. Ultimately, you opened with a beautiful poem called Illuminating. Can you speak a little bit about that before we get into Mutle Mothibe?
Hey man, I think the piece was just, I think a lot of times my works is taking bits of information that I'm picking up, right? So it's just raw data. And then I want to transmute this information. So taking it into something that's obscure and making it make sense, or applying it to something that makes sense. So it was just, okay, during the time, you know, I was interested in Illuminati, the Chitauri, you know, the reptilian agenda. So I was looking into those things. And there's always like a fear around these secret societies and all those things. So I was like, okay, you know, what if I use that as a benchmark for highlighting something good, which is us as artists, you know, and if we stick to artistry and if we stick to this lens that we can use to look into the world and not fear it, then it could be something that's good. So I was like, okay, Illuminati. So let's merge them together and create something beautiful.
I have that beautiful word.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll ask you more about it later. Can you talk about... initially, I wanted to ask you the question, Jorge, how did you begin this journey of poetry? But then I knew, Jorge, it was going to take us very far, because I was watching another interview of yours. You spoke about at some point, you started writing when you were at grade 5.
Yes.
So I'm going to phrase this question in a very different way. I want to know, Jorge, what was your why then to do poetry? And then what is your why now? And if there's a difference, because I'd imagine, Jorge, you've been doing poetry for over 20 years now.
Yeah.
If I'm counting correctly. So I'd like to know, Jorge, what was your why then? And what is your why now?
Okay, so when I started writing, obviously, I think I was, grade 5. And English teacher comes in. She's like, okay, we're going to do this way of writing or expressing ourselves. And she introduces poetry. So I was a very awkward kid. You know, I was very, like a very marginalized, weird, awkward kid. So I found something that I could speak through and express myself through, right? And that was my why then. It was, I'd finally found a way that I could speak and speak to someone without them making fun of me. You know, and it was just like a page, and it wouldn't speak back, and I could say and whatever, and it was quiet, you know. And then that was my why then. My why now has been more an exploration, and the best way I can I can relay how I'm experiencing reality. So that's my current why. It's the best way I can relay because it encompasses everything. How I'm experiencing reality is how I'm experiencing healing, how I'm experiencing pain, how I'm experiencing different levels of awareness, how I'm experiencing my journey through life, how I'm experiencing my experience of my body, my experience of my world, my environment. So all these things they tend to at times feel overwhelming. So there needs to be a purge. So this is my medium.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And then what about the audience? Like, what about us? Because I know you made it sound it's a very personal and beautiful thing.
Yes.
But obviously, you still find a way to share this beautiful thing. So I'd like to know
I'm lucky to have a platform.
Yeah.
Yeah. I honestly, why I'm saying I'm lucky to have a platform is because I'm trying to make you aware that the audience doesn't feature in my creative process. Because I think if the audience were to feature in my creative process, I would constantly think, this would be a dope line for them. I'm writing, this is a dope line for me. This is the best way I can write this. I think it's like writing in hyperlinks, right? So if you click on it, you get deeper information, but it's just one line. So the line is Illuminati. When you click on it, it's Illuminati, it's Chitauri, so you are getting deeper information from that. But for me, I'm saying I don't have time. I've got constraints. I need to write so much information in this one line that different people would take different information from it because of their different references. But I'm just writing this one line. For me, it speaks of an array of things, but it's just one line. Right? So I'm not thinking about the audience. I'm just thinking about me in that moment. But the audience will come out at the end when I'm performing and then say, I took this from it and I took that from it. And every single poem I've ever shared, I've always had people coming at me and giving me different interpretations. And a lot of them are beautiful. A lot of them also don't reflect me because they were not in my creative process. Yeah.
There was a question that I wanted to ask you. It was a follow-up question, but I'll come back to it. Can you talk a little bit about Psalm on Palm? Is it Psalm and Palm?
Psalms on Palms.
Psalms on Palms.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite poems from you. Imagine you know it already. I love that line. It's even been on my WhatsApp status since the beginning of last year. I think. Direct from the void came a dialect.
A primordial
dialect devoid of consonant and vowel. Yeah. That's beautiful. Oh, actually, before we talk about that, the follow-up question that I wanted to ask you was that, is there ever a time where you felt like, I'm going to be performing this poem, but yet I know that the audience might not get what I'm saying,
All the time.
All the time.
All the time.
So sometimes you do it on purpose, that this is...
No, I don't think that's what I'm saying. If I'm doing it on purpose, it means I'm
thinking about the...
Yes.
Okay, no, it makes sense.
But the reason I say I don't think they'll get it all the time is because I have had experiences of people coming at me and saying, hey, this is what... And I'm like, no, that had nothing to do with that, But I think that's the beauty of it, is still sticking to my truth. Sticking to what it is I want to express. And if I'm lucky enough for people to experience it the way, because, there was a update I shared recently where I'm playing around with ChatGPT, so I'm putting the lines in my poems and telling ChatGPT to interpret these lines and tell me what it is that you get from these lines, Some of them are very, very accurate. Some of them also touch on things that I don't think people would get at like
surface level.
At a surface level, they'd need to dig deeper and then maybe ask me about it, and then I kind of lead them and give them a door that they need to look into. But ChatGPT was extracting this information because obviously it's connected to the World Wide Web, and it can play on nuance and see all the ways in which it could be a double entendre, triple entendre. It could see all these layers that I've put into one line. So I've been enjoying that, But when I'm in my space, I'm purely concentrated on writing what it is I feel, and okay if someone doesn't get it.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Yeah. Let's go back to Psalms on Palms. Was it your intention to actually? Because I was actually, when I was listening to it at some point, I was like, there's actually an anagram, psalm and palm.
Yes, it is.
So did you do that on purpose?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I love anagrams. Those are my favorite word plays. But also it felt fitting, right? Because the first time I performed that poem, it was Psalms is praise, right? And I performed it on my palms. And I held my body up on my palms, and I was praising someone I was in love with at the time. Well, not in love with at the time, but I was in love with, you know? So I felt, wouldn't this be a perfect way of presenting the poem on my palms?
On your palms, yeah.
And I'm actually praising this person, you know? So yeah, it was a beautiful wordplay, and it just felt like everything came together to serve that title. Yeah.
Beautiful poem. How many takes now? Because
I've lost count. I've really lost count. But when I did it the first time, it was literally my 100th take.
Oh, that's the recorded version that is available on YouTube.
Yes. Yeah. So what I've done, so the practice of it is, I write the poem, and then after I'd written the poem, then I started reciting it and getting it into my head. And then the first time I ever got onto my palms, I said, take one.
Yeah.
And then I needed to practice it because I needed to hold my body up throughout the poem. So it was like 2 minutes and I think 47 seconds or something.
Yeah.
So I'm holding my body up, and I needed to get the breathing right. I needed to get the pace right. So I needed to get that perfect. So it was literally training my body to perform a poem.
Yeah.
And then, that's how I got it right. So my 100th take, I was like, I think it'll be perfect if I say take 100. So I did it 99 times at home. And then my 100th take was when I got on stage.
What was the writing process like? What was the approach, and how did the idea come
I think it's crust, mental, core. I'm going to give you the mental and crust version because the core, I feel like it's just, it will lead us on a very, very different route, right? But the crust of it is, I felt the person I was with at the time had been such a monumental impact on me. And I wanted to express that to the world, right? And then the mental of it is, she had been linked to a very heavy part of my life at the time, and she had helped me heal. So I felt the best way for me to celebrate her is to praise her for the healing that I'd actually gotten to. So then that's how I got. So it was a praise song, but also obviously because Psalms, it's linked to spirituality, it's linked to religion. So it was also like the fact that when someone goes on and prostrates, and to lay themselves in a prostrating posture in front of you is a sign of respect, and it's a sign of reverence for someone, you know? So that's how I'd actually come up with that specific. The creative process, it was, I write strange, I follow feeling. That's honestly the way I write. The words are always there because I read a lot, but I follow feeling. Sometimes I'll write a line and then I'll just, repeat it over and over and over and over, and then I let stream of consciousness take over for the next line. So I'll say, Psalms on Palms, what is the first line? When you speak of us, tell them that when you speak of us.
When you speak of us, tell them this.
Yes. But then so I'll say, tell them this. When you speak of us, tell them this. When you speak, and then the scent of her,
touch my nose.
The scent of the still sun rays, and then I'll repeat that line over and over, and then I'll just let it go, and then the next line will come up, and then the next, and then I'll come and I edit as I write.
Oh,
yes, I edit as I write, so that by the time I have the full piece, then I'm gonna do more edits.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
What's the intersectionality of love and spirituality in your poems are themes that I constantly see in your poems. Do you do it on purpose?
I don't know the difference. I don't see where spirituality stops and love begins. I think all of it is just like interconnected and beautiful, I think love is spirituality. Spirituality is love. So I really struggle to separate the two. And I think I've learned a lot from love. I think I've learned a lot from the expression of love, from the receiving love, and the nuances of what love is. The same way I've learned so much from spirituality and all the ways in which I've delved into it, what I've received from it, all the ways it's made me interpret reality in a different way, all the ways it's helped me interpret myself in a different way, you know? So I've struggled to separate the two. Yeah,
makes sense. I was actually I had memorized this poem the past few months until Gilebala. Because like I could hear myself every time when I'm reciting it. Especially there's a line that I always like mistaken. When you when you speak of us, tell them this. Her skin taught my nose a scent of distilled sun rays, and on some days her scent caught me by the toes. So I'll just open it by her scent caught me by the toes. I'm like, something is wrong here.
Yeah.
You know. Anyway, I wanted to further illustrate my point when I spoke about your intersectionality of spirituality and love. There's a beautiful line here where you say, my tongue stumbling over words, trying to some ways in which my spirit orbits her temples on Sunday. Tell them that she is my prayer mat. So it's beautiful.
You know, like I'll give you a glimpse of the times when I was depressed. One of the things that used to sort of like help me move through such phases was yoga. So I'm very, very devoted to yoga. Love yoga. And what I would do is, while I was with her, I would then do yoga in her space. So she would feel, okay, she's like, hey, it's time for yoga. And I'd go and do yoga.
Prayer mat.
Yeah, you know, so now I was seeing how this person had encouraged me to go and pray during that time, like go into yourself and it's okay. And I was like, oh man, this person was literally like someone who was saying, go and unfold yourself in this corner and see, because when I'm on my yoga mat, I'm going through all these things. I'm going into my shadow aspects. I'm going into parts of me that are light. I'm going into parts of me that are painful. But all of it while, if you were to look at me doing yoga, I'm just serene. I am doing postures. I'm holding but inside, there's so much that is happening. Right? There are parts of me that I'm feeling shameful of, that I'm having to process. Parts of me that I'm feeling proud of, that I'm having to process, you know? And this person was the person who was around at that time and saying, go into that space and it's okay. So unfold before her feet, you know? I was literally unfolding before her feet. And then there's one time she'd come in right after I was finished and then she brought me tea, you know, and I thanked her, right now I'm going through such a tough time and it's so beautiful to meet you at the end of prayer. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Of course, you spoke about writing from feelings and also reading a lot, you know, but when one is reading or when one is listening to your poems, you can tell there's a lot of technicalities and literary devices that goes into it. You know, I was just wondering, I don't know if I got this wrong. But there's a line where you say, tell her mind moves me. And then you say, tell her kinesis is the secret name. You know, so I don't know if you were playing around with her kinesis and telekinesis or the moving of mind.
Yes, because like it's an interplay of movement and stillness. Tell her mind moves me.
Yeah.
Tell her kinesis is the spirit animal that guards her bloodline, right? So as in, because my understanding of her, when I met her and the person she is now, she was quite a ambitious person, right? And I remember the first time I ever met her, she was like, no, this is just a phase in my life. I'm going to be quite successful. And right now, she's one of the top PRs in South Africa. Beautiful. You know. And when I met her, she was in teaching. She quit teaching and she went to study PR. And she was like, I want to make. And everybody was like, you are quitting a job and it's settled. And she's like, no, I'm gonna make something of myself beyond that. You know. And I'm still in contact with her, and we're friends. Even though we broke up, right? On good terms. But having understood what informed her lineage and having informed the sort of person that she is and what I was experiencing of and how much she was inspirational to me, I was like, tell her mind moves me. Tell her kinesis is the secret name for the spirit animal that guards her bloodline. So like they are just constantly growing, but it wasn't also a play on the mind and moving and telekinesis because we move things with our mind.
Yeah.
There's
a new word that I learned via your poem. It's the same poem. It says, I know very little in this Morpheus of time. So all along I had thought, Jorge, you were talking about Morpheus from the Matrix.
Morpheus.
I didn't know the word. Because I think the reason why I actually thought of that was that you also mentioned Morpheus selling us second-hand dreams and the poem Justin Meets Mutle. So I don't know, was this also a word play? Because a Morpheus obviously means something that doesn't have a clear structure. But also you speak about, I know very little in this. So I was like, why would Mutle say, I know very little in these, but I'm a Morpheus of my time? Because Morpheus was somebody that was supplying knowledge in the Matrix.
I think no, that one wasn't. It was honestly just me sticking to amorphous. I knew very little in these amorphous of times, but one thing I knew for sure, I think it was a play on something that is structureless and something that I know is currently structured and it's still and it's stable.
Juxtaposition of some sort.
So I was saying I know very little in these amorphous of times, but one thing I know for sure is that she is my woman, my guide, my omen turned prophecy, my hide stretched over these. I think the one play that I really loved was the play on hide. So hide is the skin of an animal, right? So in these amorphous of times, but one thing I know for sure is that she is my woman, my guide, right? My omen turned prophecy, my hide. And then I say, stretched over these hollow bones when my skin finds my beaten spirit too expansive to hide. So that play.
So the hide
is something that she is actually my as I'm moving through these tough times, in the hide, stretch over these hollow bones when I find my skin too expansive to hide. So even when my skin itself finds the true Mutle too big to hide, she's the person who could actually and be like, I'm moving through these tough times, So
there's that's beautiful. Can I say it's a hide again? There's a line where you spoke about her being able to see through you, because I had written your poem somewhere, so I couldn't find it. So more phony, so I couldn't highlight it. I don't know if you recall the line.
Is it the same from Psalms and Palms?
Yes.
Or she sees past the magic and knows the fear I hide behind my sleight of words. I bring stillness to her heart line. Tell her mind. Yes.
It sounds like this person was like your safe space,
Yeah. Oh no. This is what I'm saying. That was a difficult time in my life. Like when that poem came out, I was going through the most. I think at that time I can even say like there were points where, like I think suicide also comes to mind. So it was a very, very, very heavy time, but also I think between her and thoughts of my kids, I think those are things that have always like propelled me to move forward. Like me being a dad is paramount, but I could also admit the biology of my brain at the time. It was overwhelmed and it felt like I need to shut down, but over and above everything, I think at my core, my kids are everything to me.
You've actually been keeping us updated on your relationship with your kids. And remember the other post you spoke about how now you've finally found custody of your last born son.
Yes.
There's something that you wrote on Facebook in a beautiful way. I don't remember what you said, but you were actually, so you wrote 2 lines. It ends with an Achilles heel. So sort of like when the mother of your baby is using the child to get to you. Do you remember what you said?
No, I think I'd be lying.
I don't know if I have it on my phone.
Yeah.
And yes, people on the channel have been telling me, Jorge, I need to get cue cards. I'm like, they have to buy it for me because now I have a weird way of understanding things, of seeing things. Keratadilo in chaos.
Oh,
When
yeah,
things
yeah.
are in order.
I'm such a structured person. I would have had question 1 and then ended with question 10 here. I would have moved across.
I can't.
I'm too structured.
If I see structured things, I get confused. There was this other time I was doing sound for this other theater show. So my stage manager came to look at my notes because of like with theater shows, you have to like be very strict with your cues. Okay, there's cue one. This is the kind of sound that is going to be playing this, you know. So she came and looked into my smaller paper. Literally everything where it was in that paper.
Yeah.
That for me, I could understand it, but it be like a line about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
It's gonna be problematic. You
know?
I
understand.
Yeah, so you gotta forgive me for like
no worries. No worries.
Yeah, so you said his mother says you are a responsible man being controlled through your child by their mother.
Oh yeah.
And then you said my artistic ear here is your son's rays are being transmuted into cancerous arrows pointed at your Achilles heel.
Oh, I actually wrote a poem about that later. But
for real.
But the line was interpreted, was written, but I can't remember the poem now. I wish you told me in advance. But anyway, so I think in situations like that, right? I found myself having to fight for basic access to my kid, right? My last born child. And it felt that I was being made to jump through hoops for what could have been something that doesn't need this much effort for, right? And I think it's sad that when people are, having their battles, and people also have fears that what if I don't get the baby back, or I don't really entertain that too much, because I'm always thinking if there's effort from two parents who are saying the safety and wellness of the child is what's best, then they need to come together and make that stay in place. So taking the child away from one parent and saying, but I'm the best version and I'm the only thing they need, that's where the problem lies. So then my mother was saying at one time, like, no, man, at times you need to loosen your grip.
Yeah.
And because I was obviously in court, I was fighting proper legal battle. I lost thousands, and I didn't lose thousands because I gained my son back. And what was beautiful about my mother saying that she was saying, for my sake, and also for my mental health, because my son still needs a healthy father, I needed to let go a bit and let things play out and not keep forcing them to turn out the way I need them to turn out right now.
Yeah.
And things did turn out the way I needed them, Yeah. So it was that, like, if you want to get at me in any way, get at me through my kids.
Yeah.
That's the only way. Anything else, I'd be like, no, family is paramount to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, but even with that, man, I didn't turn into someone who's, won custody. I won the primary caregiver. So that means that the child gets to stay with me, but I'm not the only person who is considered the primary custody when it comes to the child. So we still share custody. When the child needs to visit her, I still then take the child over. I turned into the very thing I'd expected my partner to have been, which is someone who's willing to make the safety and the care of the child the main thing, and not what is happening between her and I.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I come from the school of thought of church. So there used to be a saying that a lot of people used to say about how we make pain your ministry.
Yeah.
I don't know if it makes sense. So, for example, the activists, a lot of activists, maybe you're going to find somebody who is an abortion activist, maybe, for example. I'm not saying I'm for, I'm not saying I'm against it. It's a conversation for another day. But you're going to find somebody who is an abortion activist. You find them, they were actually being raped at some point, or actually they were denied that right. Or we could talk about a number of things. So I'm just wondering, in your case, when you were denied that, did it make you have empathy and sympathize with other men out there? Because
look, during the time,
the tale of fathers are not told.
Yes, definitely. I think I'm also surrounded by very devoted fathers, fathers who wouldn't in the million years abandon their kids. But I've seen and also counseled this, some of them through similar situations. So during the time, no, because I was too focused on my own thing, and I was in my corner, because I get very isolated. When I'm fighting battles, I isolate myself, and I'm fighting my battle, and then I'll come back and tell you, like, yo, this scar, this is where it came from, But I've gone on to counsel quite a number of men who have found themselves in situations where there's a breakup. Yes, breakups can be messy. Breakups can be also quite healthy. I think there's always this thing that every breakup needs to be unhealthy. I've had quite a number of breakups where we sat down and we walked out with the same energy we walked into the relationship, right? But I've had quite a number of men that I've counseled who, some of them are still going through legal battles. Some of them are, they're going through hell, man. And it's sad that even I don't know, man, publicizing our pain always feels tiresome.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand why I need to reach out. And outside of a man, I think just thinking of a human being being denied the right to have access to their child, just like that basic right, is very difficult. And I don't think men hurt any less. But I think beyond that, I don't think any human hurts any less. I get there are situations where people can just be, I don't care. It's not my problem. It's not my child. I don't want to be a part of that. But there are human beings who are invested. There are human beings who also have a history of having been abandoned, who now don't want their own children moving through that, So that's the one thing that I've always been very touchy about. And I've availed myself to strangers on Facebook who are like, yo, man, I'm moving through this. And I'm like, yo, give me updates on this. I know you just spoke to me because you saw my update, but give me updates on this. How is that going? What help do you need? I spoke to this lawyer. This is the lawyer that helped me. This is the ways in which they work. He's actually quite reasonable when it comes to money. So these are the things I've even just availed to people, but I've always kept it private because I don't want it to have this public spectacle, because everybody, once they see a subject, they will bring up their own pain. But also little na banna later, little na basadi later, and then it's just the back and forth. And I don't want to be a part of that. I like dealing case by case. And I know if I'm dealing with this person and I'm dealing with them on a personal and private approach, I think then they feel seen and they feel heard, and we move through this specific problem without having to deal with, these are the nuances and these are the other experiences that are external that you also need to now disclaim about when you're speaking in the way that you present your wording. And I'm like, we don't have time for that. There's a father whose son is not seeing this person. That's what I'm concerned about. There's a daughter whose mother is not seeing this person. That's what I'm concerned about. How do we work around that?
Yeah. I was just wondering, I was about to ask you, but already you did answer it. I was just wondering, how do we find a way to navigate around these healthy conversations? Because for a logical person, many truth, like so many things can be A1, or two things can be true at the same time. And we live at a time where there was a time where people used to say, people don't communicate, And throughout the years, I realized, people have been speaking. Our problem is that we lack comprehension skills. And sometimes I think it's on purpose. We live at a time of whataboutism. You're another thing. You're going to be telling a story. this father has been struggling with this. There's going to be somebody who's going to be like, yeah, but men, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Like, okay, can you focus on this? You know, and also how we men, we find a way to ride on women's waves, you know, because I think what women did over the years, they have found a way to like and learned through hardship to articulate their pain, to speak about their pain. And Rona is banna. I think we normalized it's okay, you know. So I think now we got to a point where we became aware there is a need to speak. But now we are struggling to communicate pain is our own, you know. So in a way, we end up riding on the waves that, you know, because now I'm realizing a lot of men are going through pains of different things. Could be the relationship with their children, but what they do is that we don't find a way to like communicate. Him telling me, Fana, these are the proper channels that you have to go through. No, we're gonna find the situations online where a woman is talking about an abusive father, and we're gonna be like, yeah, also you woman 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So
it's a look for me. I personally feel, look, if you're gonna jump on social media, understand you are exposing yourself to thousands of references and thousands of background stories and thousands of pain bodies that are gonna come at your story and say, right? I deal with it with a starfish by starfish sort of approach. Like, how can I make a difference on that one person? When they're coming at me and they are ready to open up and talk about this specific thing, how can I make? And then that person will speak to another one person, because you know, if another man comes to me and they start talking about their feelings, I am very quick to sit down and shut out everything and listen to them. And encourage them to keep exploring that feeling further, and even encourage them that we don't always have to have a solution in mind in order for us to just say how we feel about something. Because I think a lot of times you're like, but what's the point? What's the point of saying it if we don't have a solution? No, just how do you feel about it? I don't know. How do you feel about it? I don't like it. Oh, that's the way we're starting, you know? Okay, what informs that dislike? No, it brings up, okay, let's go into that story. When was the first time you ever disliked something similar to this? And then people have references, and these are the neurological wirings of our brains. There's a story and a core where this thing started for you to have a dislike about it. And let's touch on that. Let's see what in your system, in your nervous system, is in distress because of this situation. But I'm like, tell me how you feel. That is part of solution. If you're gonna think the solution is us having the outcome that we want realistically, then you're not looking at the real problem. Right? You need to look at it holistically. Like, tell me how you feel, you know? And that's one of the most beautiful things that I'm constantly being reminded of by my current partner. She always says, listen, even if it was something as simple as a tone that you didn't like when I spoke to, like, just say, hey, you know, I didn't like that tone. And she will say, oh, then let's walk through it. And we unpack. And every single time, my woman asks me every single morning, like, how do you feel? And I'm learning to speak feeling. Like, this is how I feel. No, I'm not feeling good. I'm feeling, and just that. And not follow the word feel with thought. Like, how are you feeling? I'm feeling sad. How are you feeling? I'm feeling like I'm having a bit of a hard time at work. Or I'm feeling like, this is a complex, that's not feeling. Tell me feeling. How do you feel about how that is complex? Tell me that. It's frustrating. Ooh, okay, we're getting into feelings now, you know? So I'm learning also, even myself, who's read all these books on like emotional intelligence and non-violent communication. I'm still myself learning to apply those principles.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. But I think it's very difficult, but the beauty of it is I'm not too concerned with changing things in my lifetime. But I am very concerned with starting things in my lifetime and understanding that it would take generations to change it. But if I'm starting with my kid and I'm saying to him, Moya, it's okay for me to say that I love you. It's okay for me to wake you up in mornings with kisses. It's okay for me to every single morning wake you up with kisses on your face, even though you're 5 years old. It's okay for me to kiss my 17-year-old and tell him that I love him, and for him to tell him that he loves me back. It's okay for us to understand that feelings are okay. For me to help them understand as boys that we can speak feelings the same way I encourage my daughter to speak feelings. You know, so I feel this is where it starts. By the time they're giving birth, they're conceiving their own kids, then it's just standard for them. Oh no, like men can hug and kiss without it being like, what is that? What is that? You know, I can hug and kiss your cheeks. I can kiss your whole face as my son. And I'm like, you're never too old for that, you know? And even as in his 40s, if I'm God willing, I'm still alive in his 40s, I want to still be able to kiss my son's face. Yeah.
That sounds like healthy masculinity.
Yeah.
But it's funny how the red pill community would say, because there is this fear around masculinity that we're becoming, what's the word, effeminate, you know. And also my takeaway from what you just said is that your current partner has actually created a safe space, you know, which is, I think, what a lot of men being lacking, you know, because as I was saying before, we grew up like knowing, okay, something can happen, you just keep quiet, you know, like you went out with your friends and then they beat you and then you come home, Kabelo, what happened? No, nothing happened, we would just play. And then tomorrow your family is going to be like, hey, why and you're not going to say what happened, you know, you just gotta go there, you know, because a safe space wasn't created for us by us, as you were saying, when you find a way, okay, let me start with my kids, you know, let me start with my children.
I'll go a step further. I'm looking at what informed my dad's interpretation of what care is, and then what informed him to think that is care, right? So currently, I think a lot of men are looking at their fathers and thinking, he was a great provider, but he wasn't a great caregiver, right? He provided us, and he put food on the table, he put a roof over our head, put clothing on my back, he put me through school because he paid the school fees, but I never hugged my dad. And then you look at what he came from. And then you look at the time factoring, and this man was like always just like coming home. He put food on the table, he put a roof over head. What more did they want? Yeah. And then that was it for him. And you keep going back and you realizing that there was a point where men came to understand that is care. If you're doing this, that's why till today, when men feel like they're not taking care of their family, they're thinking, and that is care. That's the instinctive thing. Or for me to provide is to provide care. And then now when we're looking at our fathers, like, no, he didn't care about me. He did. Yeah. He just expressed it in a way that you don't understand. Because now, when I say it's about internet, it's about globalization made us exposed to all these nuances of what care is. Now we're like emotional intelligence. Now, my dad, all he ever does is like shut down every time I try to talk to him about all the ways in which he wasn't a great dad. But he was a great dad. But he doesn't understand the wording that you're using, the jargon that you're using right now. So he's going to shut down because he's going to feel offended. Mishimono doesn't understand. For him to be where he is right now is because I was expressing care. It just was not the one that he understands right now. So don't go bashing at your history thinking that it was lesser just because now you've got a different lens that you're looking at it through. It could be just the same thing, just tint the lens a bit, you know? Yeah. So I there was a point where I remember even myself like, maybe my dad didn't hug me, you know? And I remember like literally in my whole life, I don't remember my dad hugging me. And then I had a dream once where he did hug me, you know? And I wondered what it is about this hug that I felt was so important that it would override the fact that this man put a roof over my head. And he went out every single day without fail. And he came back every afternoon. And he lived, like, as much as, you know, it was a foreign concept, my dad actually tucked us in every single night. He would come back because we were staying with him. And, you know, the beauty of the cyclical nature of generational things is that there was a point where my dad did not have access to us. And then there was a point where he did have, not that there was any beef with my mother. My mother was like, yes, but there was a point where they're like, okay, you're going to stay with your mother and then you will visit your dad from time to time. And then now I myself was in the same situation where, no, you will not live with your dad, but you will visit him from time to time, you know? But then my dad would come home every afternoon and we were staying with him and he would tuck us in and he would make sure that the covers are actually covering our bodies properly. And I was like, that was care. This person actually made sure that there was food in our house, there was roof over our head, our fees were always on time. There was never a time where we needed clothes, there was never a time where we needed anything when it comes to provision. And I was like, you're going to override that because your dad didn't hug you. Balance yourself out.
Yeah.
To
think it's a matter of contextualizing
Yes.
these things and also having grace, you know, because we are privileged to be able to be learning about these things. You know, because there was a time where you didn't even have time to be reading or searching on the internet or having to read about emotional intelligence.
Think about it, even that. Let's think about when did the internet become accessible to everybody?
Exactly.
When did that level of information become accessible? So you're telling me, like my mother today, it's still like, when I got the phone, but she uses a smartphone, you know, and to use like basic things like, no, just, you know, make a deposit. This is like, no, I don't want to do it too quick. What if I do the wrong thing? You know, who when it's something, okay, I've sent the money and you carry on with life. It's like sending a text, you know, for them, it's something that they're still very cautious around because their brains were not wired around such things, you know? So I think there needs to be a lot more patience and grace, and also us viewing through things through their eyes. And if we can see through their eyes, I think there will be a whole lot less pain we're moving through, a whole lot less victimized energy that we are moving as. And obviously, now this is where the other people would come in with their own references. But, and then you can fill in your disclaimers there for those ones. That's where you fill in your disclaimers, but I'm not going to entertain that. Right now, we're speaking about this.
Mutle, the reason why we're actually speaking about this, you're going to be performing at Amen. Wooden Sound, 28, right? This is... tell us more about it. And also, I think you can tell us what is it that we can expect 28 if people are going to be coming to watch you new material. I had you're working on a material, and also how it's all when are you releasing, because otherwise I'm going to be holding you hostage. We need your material on streaming services. Please, please, whatever that we have to do.
I will end with that. So yes, on the 28th I'm performing. It's Amen, and it's in collaboration with Word and Sound. And this is such a beautiful initiative because it's speaking on the very thing we just touched on. Sometimes it might not be a platform where other men can speak, but sometimes having one man stand in front of you and say, these are the things I'm going through, and then seeing yourself reflected in that is also helpful, because in our isolation, we think we are the only ones going through this. So what's the point of talking about it or even reaching out, you know? So that's been the beautiful part about it. So Amen is that initiative. It is about the South African man. I don't even know how to summarize it, but I think I'll speak on what it means to me. It is a platform where I can finally speak as a man and all the layers it takes for me to show up as a man while being Mutle, and how sometimes bunna is difficult to access as munna, and other times it's difficult to be myself and access the masculinity. So it interplays in certain ways that I've found it difficult to be myself as a man, and I've found it difficult to be a man as myself. So that's what I'm going to be touching on. But on the other end as well, the new material, should I give out this? Okay, I'll give you a glimpse. The glimpse of it is, I lost my brother last year, September 14th. Right? And in the passing of my brother, I came to understand the role and the impact losing a father has on children. So I got to experience it with my nieces and my nephew, right? Because he had children. And what I've been living with now is, during the time of the funeral, I was bathing my kid. And then my niece came into the bathroom and she said, can I bath, right? And I realized that she's asking this because at home we bath our kids, and her dad used to bath her. And I realized that she will grow up not having an understanding of the last time her father bathed her.
Yeah.
So every time I bath my kids or I say goodbye to my kids, I'm moving with this could be my last time. And am I going to be aware of it? You know? So now everything has become hyper vivid. Hore, this is the last time you're doing these things. So I went into the future and I thought, what would be the thing that I'd want someone to know if I died and they were marrying my child, my daughter, or my son? But this one was more geared towards my daughter, because as fathers, you take on the responsibility of like being this masculine example of what she's going to understand when it comes to love, when it comes to care, when it comes to provision, right? And I'm like, who would I pass this over to, and what would I say to them? And that's where the poem came from. So I wrote this poem in relation to just my understanding of me also now wanting marriage and wanting to move into a marriage dynamic. And what would I want to carry in myself as I'm treating my partner as a wife, you know? And then I saw myself through her father's eyes, because her father unfortunately also passed away. And I'm like, what would he have said to me? So these are the things I'm just looking at. I'm like, if there was something, a holistic masculinity were to speak to me or to speak to future generations of men in how they should treat women, what would they say?
Oh.
And that's the poem that I'll be closing with.
Yeah. Streaming services? I have a lot
on
of
streaming
questions.
services, yes. So I am very old school, very, very old school. And I am currently working on a project. I'll give you that. I'm currently working on a project. And the reason I'm saying this now is because I'm also putting pressure on myself so that I can release this project. The project is, there are vials, right? You know, these bottle vials, and then it's got like a wine cork at the top. So these small little vials. So the cork itself has a USB sort of stick, sort of information SD card stuck to it. So then the cork sticks onto the bottle, right? And this piece and this work and this next album, I don't know how it'll come out as, right? It might be coming out as an audio visual work, or it might be coming out as audio, but it's gonna be called Emotions in a Bottle, right? So that's what I'm currently working on. As to that's something I cannot say in the moment, but that's currently something I've been working on for quite a while. And I'm precious about it because I have a feeling it might be one of my last works, because family is currently my greatest artwork that I'm currently working on. And I think yes, I'm not saying I'm quitting poetry, do not get that twisted, but I'm saying the dedication and the energy currently is being taken up by my care for my kids and also building the family that I want. You know, that's my main focus right now. Yeah.
I love it. We're left with actually 3 minutes and I have 5 questions. So I have to find a way to we're gonna have to find a way. Okay. Other one. This is a poem called Message in a Massage. There's a part you wrote, Jorge, you are not that bad at putting words at pieces of papers, but I need to learn the art of writing feelings into her body. And then parts of speech fall short when touch is the medium. You know? So I'm just wondering, Jorge, there is a school of thought that is suggesting what writers are actually dope in creating love stories, but when it comes to reality, apparently you guys suck.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I wouldn't know about writers. I know about myself. And I can honestly say I don't have a great track record because of the relationship that I've been in. But I can say, if I were to line up every single person I've ever dated in here, and I asked them at the height of our relationship, how was it? They would actually be saying he was actually quite a great partner. So I've actually been quite invested in the expression of love and making the partner that I'm with at the time understand what it is they bring up in me and what it is they make me aspire to be. Yeah,
I love it.
they make me aspire to. There was a sentence there. It will figure itself out in other people's heads, but you get what I mean.
No, we still gonna have to come back and I wanted to tell you like a personal story, because now we are getting to that part where I was telling you, Jorge, you get to a point where you have to like because I wanted us to speak about 3 or 4 ounce, which is an essay that you wrote. Very beautiful essay. It's available on the internet. Essay that was written by Mutle, and then we're gonna speak about that in closing. I wanted to tell you about this poem, Justin Meets Mutle. It saved my life. I can't say what I have overcome depression. I'm still going through it, but the intensity of it, with years. I think I'm hoping I'm getting better, because like with this thing, you constantly living at a point where you are giving life consent, you are saying yes to life, or you're saying no to death every day. No. So different things work for different phases. There was a year where prayer carried me. There was a year where something carried me. But I want to tell you, Jorge, there was a year where Justin Meets Mutle carried me, because it's a very, very beautiful poem.
That's beautiful, because speaking to that point, man, when I was telling you about sometimes you need someone to stand in front of you and say, and then they reflect you back to yourself. Because when I wrote Justin, I wanted to quit poetry. And I said, if I were to watch something that would make me continue doing poetry, what would it sound like and what would it look like? And then that's where I wrote Justin from. And obviously having found the visuals, then it just everything worked beautifully together. So it's beautiful and man, like heartfelt that's where you were. And that's what it brought you out of. Because for me, poetry has been such a lifeline. Like without the poetry, then I'm getting into my depressive state. I'm getting into my unhealthy state. I'm getting into like spiritually being unwell. That's where the lack of poetry leads me. So man, like it's quite heartwarming to see that the meriana ka ila sebeletsa batho ba bang.
I also wanted to ask you in concern with this poem, Jorge. It actually made sense when I saw you coming from initiation school. I was like, how it makes sense, because that man was cooking. Matter of fact, in the closing line, because I was trying to find more within thing, and I can't find it.
It is our responsibility to teach something.
Reality will wake us,
Yes.
And reminding us what Marakwara is to actually heal people, or to teach people how to access divinity through art.
Yes.
And there's so many lines in there, because you go step by step of how to like save yourself. Morpheus keep on selling us the second-hand dreams. Like, somehow I find myself resonating with that. And then there's a part where you speak about what is convincing this poet to quit. This is beautiful. Can we close speaking about the essay of is it 3/4 of an ounce?
You 3/4 ounce.
You wrote about this doctor McDougall, who spoke, who did an experiment on 5 dying bodies. When they die, there's a certain weight that they lose, you know.
Yes.
But also, you told me a personal story. Actually, this poem was actually about your son, Vumani. You had lost a son. Can you speak a little bit about that in closing?
So the concept itself, I think it was like a merger of two things. One part was also, there's a movie by Denzel Washington called Fallen. So it's about Azazel, and every time people would touch, so it would be like an angel moving through bodies, but it would take over this person's body at the time. So the only thing that needed to happen was that if he touches you, then he goes into you. So like if I touch you now and Azazel is in me, he'd go into your body, right? So now I was thinking of, because so the child, it was what is this? What's the word? You lose a child before birth.
Miscarriage.
Yes, it was a miscarriage. So what had happened was, because it was a miscarriage, I wondered what if the soul was there, but there was no body to inhabit.
Ooh.
Right? So that's how that poem came to be. So it was a healing process of, maybe in them not having a body now, they might have found another body in a different time or in a different lifetime or in this vicinity. Maybe someone else, their child had nearly died and then they were born. The body was born, but there was no soul in that. He took over that body.
Yeah.
But it was just exploring an idea of it. There was no cessation of energy.
Yeah.
It just carried on. Because I think a lot of times we struggle with loss because it's like, hufedile, you know, we can't see beyond. And I was just trying to explore different concepts of what beyond is. And then I went with that. I'm like, what if Bomani was born? And from that first breath, or the lack of that first breath, he went and he spread himself through the world, and he was just jumping into a body, or jumping into different bodies. And every time you'd have there was Vumani coming into your system and experiencing your body or leaving your body. But it was just like a quiet, non-invasive energy that can just move throughout the world without having a possession sort of like experience, but just learning what it is and what they could have experienced had they had a body. So yeah.
How does your spiritual identity shapes the kind of poet that you are?
My poetry, from what I've discovered, has always come from my spirit. I think there was never a point where it was anything but from the spirit.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm also learning that beyond the free association that I write with, that energy that informs me of what I should write on my next line has everything to do with my spirituality. Yeah. So there isn't because of the formula-lessness of it. When I'm tapping into huitluhela, what is taking over, and once that takes over, that's where the spirit comes in. So every single one of my poems has come from that creative space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're one of the people that when you write about cosmology, I get the sense that this is a person who actually gets to experience these things, because there are people,
Yes.
when I listen to their poetry, I can feel like this cosmology and spirituality was included in their poetry in a form of literary device, their metaphors and whatnot. But when Mutle says I was rocking the full moon back to sleep, I'm like, he was,
Oh yes, no, and it blurs it a bit. I think there's this thing that I used to think about of lens. There's the lens of a microscope and the lens of a telescope. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm constantly moving between those lenses. So what could be a play on I was rocking the full moon back to sleep.
Yeah.
And then it could be literally I was rocking my daughter back to sleep. But because I experience her as the moon and my son as the sun, and they feed off of each. So it's also an interplay of, yes, it could be wordplay, but it could also literally be how I experience and perceive the world.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, you did mention it at some point here, because we don't have time. You were speaking about something about the telescope and the
and the microscope.
It's in one of these articles here.
Yeah.
To look at a body cell through a microscope is the same as looking at a planet through a telescope.
Yeah.
Okay? I want to take this time and say thank you. The other part that we were going to speak about was the letter to
Shakti Shiva.
Yeah, I wanted to know and also
No. That was just a at the time, I didn't have a partner. I was celibate. And then I wanted to write my perception of what sex is on a tantric level. And then that is what I wrote.
Yeah. There's a line you say, her breath leaves when I enter.
Yes,
she comes into her senses.
And the line that also follows that is, and then I come, she comes to her senses, and I come to her senses. So as in that, during that time, that merger was so complete that I started seeing the world through her eyes. So I came to her senses. So
there's a time where people are hoping for Adele to experience heartbreak. Nah? Let's see. I want to say to you, you've written enough of heartbreak poems.
Yes, I'm writing love poems. I am going back to writing love poems.
They are beautiful. There's another one. You were saying trying to win over her heart is the equivalent of trying to shovel rain back up the clouds. I think it's from Emotions and Gardens.
Yes.
That was beautiful. So I want to say, thank you, and thank you to your partner for creating a safe space.
Oh man,
I can't wish for you to experience a botlhoko so that the best can come of you. I believe love can also bring the best out of us. And also I wanted to say, it's been an honor. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully next time when I call, you're gonna extend me the grace again.
It will be my pleasure. And thank you for the platform as well. I think it's not a lot of times where we can speak with a lot more detail into our work versus brushing over it. You know, I love what you did in going over the work, going into the intricacies and having me unpack that. That's very rare. And I want to thank you as well for the level of work you are putting in when it comes to your guests. That is very rare, and that is very, very much appreciated. As an artist, I know how people are just doing things for the sake of, and then so thank you for that.
Right, so Mutle Mothibe, this is the Ink and Think podcast.